All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Cecilia, for those who don't know me. I am the current Young People's Laureate for London, which in a nutshell basically means I'm all about kind of sharing the joy of poetry around to as many young people as possible, and advocating for poetry as a space for you, whoever you are, whether you've never tried poetry before, whether you're a seasoned pro. That's my job at the moment. So this is the second of 3 webinars as part of my campaign that I'm running at the moment, hashtag write through this. So this is a campaign that's going to try and get us all writing through lockdown, no matter if you've never done it before or if you write all the time. There's something here for you, I hope. It's just really about giving yourself an hour to hang out with other people. Even though we can't see each other, it's quite nice to know that everyone's like doing the same thing together, and just to write without pressure, to enjoy the benefits of writing, to express yourself, discover what you might need to say, and hopefully have fun. So I was thinking about what to do this week. I wanted it to be, well, the title of the workshop is Demystifying Poetry. Ooh, which sounds quite impressive. But basically what that means for me, I think, is looking at restrictions and looking at forms and maybe trying to kind of unpack them a bit so that they're less intimidating to write. Because I think if I just, when I first started writing, I remember like sonnets. What is a sonnet? How terrifying. And you know, the same with other forms of poetry too. So I thought maybe we'd look at a couple of different forms and just kind of take the pressure off them and just sort of expose them a bit and have a go at writing them, and in this kind of safe environment. But the first thing I want to do is I want us to just warm up a bit. So I've got a bit of a free write that we're going to do, but it's a bit of a different twist on it. So I'm going to ask a few questions and I want you to write your answers in the box. And I'm going to write down your answers. I'm going to write down the words that you use. So this will all become clear later down the line, the reasons for doing this. But basically, I just want you to put in the box things that you have got in your fridge at the moment. Just type in the chat box. Lemons, great, perfect. Leftover pizza. Pizza, sushi. Wow, old lettuce. Sweet potatoes. Milk, cheesecake, spinach, old cabbage. A lot of old things here, guys. Might be time to sort of leftover curry. Might be time to clear out the old decks here. Leftover curry. Hamster food, great. Okay, great. Thank you so much for answering those questions so quickly. The next thing I want to ask you, things that you did today in one word. Things that you did today, but just using one word. Walk, teach, yoga, great. I mean, I suppose we're pretty restricted, aren't we? In terms of what we can do. Email, therapy, great. Cried, fell. Okay, next question for you. Animals you love. Animals you love. Dog. Beaver. Did someone write that? Or have I just imagined that? Yes, thank God for that. Imagine if I just plucked that out of my subconscious. Koala. Spider monkey. Snake. Sloth, yes, legends. Whales, pig. Mouse. Okay, thank you very much. You can pause there. And the last thing that I want is objects near you currently, in one word. Objects near you currently. Apron, bottle, candle. Crikey, these are coming fast. What is moon water? Oh my God, I've got so many questions. Paper, mug, rice, ping pong ball, bra, empty plate. Already these are poetic. Slippers. Okie dokie. So here we go. Here is the free write. I want us to just go off on a random free write, which I'm going to give you the prompt for in a second, the beginning sentence. And periodically, like every few seconds or so, actually longer than that, the gaps will be longer, I'm going to chuck one of these words at you, and I will also write it in the chat box, okay? And I want you to try and incorporate that word into whatever you're writing. But I want you to try and sort of push yourself to incorporate it in a way that's like not just then a dog walked in. Think about if you're writing about love or something in this instance, and I say the word dog, or you see Michelle sign the word dog, or you read the word dog in the chat. How can that be incorporated into what you're currently writing about? And this is to kind of push us to use language in a different way than what we're used to get us out of our patterns, really, to shake us up, and to also try and help us to kind of get a bit lost in our free write. So quite a lot of the time we're like thinking ahead and we're overthinking it, and we're trying to impose like a meaning onto our writing and a sense, and maybe like even a narrative. But when I'm chucking all these random words at you, that's going to disrupt that. It's going to force you to describe things with language that you wouldn't ordinarily reach for. But it's also going to change the course of your free write and help you get lost. And when you get lost, that's when you can really find some interesting stuff in your writing, I think. So your prompt to begin this free write, and we're going to free write for about 6 minutes, is I dreamed of a boat. That's just a random thing that I plucked out of my head. I dreamed of a boat. You're writing freely whatever comes into your head without stopping on that prompt. You're not writing fast necessarily, but you're just continuing to write. You're not thinking too much about it. You're letting it take you wherever it takes you. Don't edit yourself. Don't tell yourself it's rubbish. Don't scribble anything out. Just keep going forward. If it's messy, it's fine. If your spelling's all over the place, it's absolutely fine. But you're just writing, and then I'm going to introduce new vocabulary to you while you're writing. Okay, let's start. I dreamed of a boat. Empty plate. Moon water. Moon water. Mushroom. Leftover pig. I'm mixing some of them now. Leftover pig. Bra. Coins. Coins. Ping pong. Snake. The last one was snake, Meg. And the final one for everyone is fretted. Fretted. I'll give you a few minutes just to finish off, not a few minutes, a few seconds, just to finish off and bring what you're writing to a close. Don't worry about wrapping it up, it can just end where it ends. Okay, everyone, how was that? Tell me. Annoying? Generative? Fun? Okay, fun, says Stacey. Good. So, I have a new exercise to try with you, which I'm really excited about. One of my favorite things about workshops, oh God, just kicking my desk. One of my favorite things about workshops is designing new things to do. And I think I teach maybe like 4 or 5 workshops a week. So I'm always like thinking about ways to keep it interesting. So this is my new design. I read a poem recently. It's in a book, a really amazing book called The Breakbeat Poets. It looks like this. And it's called New American Poetry in the Age of Hip Hop. So there's a lot of African American poets and Latino poets, all kind of reflecting on like hip hop culture in America, from like the 70s all the way through to kind of modern day. It's a really great book. And I read a poem in it that was every single verse was actually a haiku. And I thought, seeing as we're looking at form today and how to kind of make it our own and have fun with it, let's look at the haiku, an underrated to some, an underrated poetry form because it's so short. So for those of you that don't know, a haiku is a 3-line poem, Japanese in origin. And what makes it a haiku? Well, one of its principal characteristics, there are other things that make it a haiku, but mainly it's that it's 3 lines and that each line has a certain amount of syllables. So in a haiku, the first line has 5 syllables, the second line has 7 syllables, and then you return again to 5 syllables for your final line. So it's very, very compressed. And I thought, how about this evening we each write a poem that has 6 stanzas in it, so 6 verses, but each verse is also a haiku. So you're kind of stacking. Those of you that watched my 10-minute writing prompt video that I posted last week might have done my exercise that I like to call the poem builder, which is where you answer like a series of questions and each question gives you a line of a poem and then you like stack it in the order that you want. If you haven't watched that video, check it out. It's on the Spread the Word page for this campaign. And this is kind of similar to that in that I'm going to give you a prompt and each prompt is going to create a haiku for you and that is going to create a verse of your poem. But I'm not mean. I would never ask you to do something that I hadn't already trialed myself. So I did this earlier and I made my own poem based on the prompts I'm going to give you. So I'll go through these with you and give you the examples as I give you the prompt, okay? The first prompt is one thing that you saw today. So my haiku example for you is new trees planted where the bare patch of grass once was. I breathed them all in. So that's my first verse of my poem. New trees planted where? 5 syllables. The bare patch of grass once was. 7 syllables. I breathed them all in. 5 syllables. So I just want you to write me a haiku about something that you saw today. And that is going to be your first stanza, your first verse. And I'm only going to give you like a minute or so. .30 seconds left. Okay. Next prompt. Remember. You don't have to use the word remember, but you are just writing a haiku for your second verse about a memory. So remember the time the fun fair came to our town, your eyes lit up wide. Again, I'm going to give you like 90 seconds for this, okay? Okay, next one. Next haiku. You said. So just using you said in your haiku, that's the only direction I'm giving you. For example, you said you were scared, but I held on to you too hard. The wind was so cold. Now that one actually links to my previous one, but yours doesn't have to if you don't want to. You can leap to a different moment. Okay. Next one. I know. I just want you to tell me something that you know in this next haiku. That could be anything. I know the sound of coming rain, how it can ache like space between us, for example. So as you can see in this haiku, the lines run on from each other, and that is totally allowed in your haiku because you're in charge and you can use a haiku however you want to. There's no such thing as the poetry police. So I know the sound of coming rain, how it can ache like space between us. Your haiku on I know. Okay, stop. 2 more to go. The next one is a fact. You can Google it if you need to. Google interesting fact. For example, geese fly in a V to help each other along. Do you remember? That's my fact. It could just be very well known, like geese fly in a V. But you have 90 seconds for your fact. Okay, and your final one, something you heard today, any sound. So men's voices outside shouting like they always do, will you come back, babe? So it could be on the TV, it could be on the radio, it could even be something you've just observed walking by. Something that someone said to you, perhaps. 90 seconds. Okay, and we're done. How was it? Did you manage to get your 6 haikus? Tell me. Good. Oh, good, Harry, good. Just about. Yeah, I was a bit mean on the time, wasn't I? I don't want you to think too much, I just want you to leap into it, you know? So what you should have is 6 verses now. And they're yours to do with what you will. You can stack them in whatever way you want to. And create a poem that way. And it's kind of, this is about sort of, I wanted to kind of boil the form of the haiku down to its bare bones and use it as a way to generate material easily, hopefully, and using the restriction of the lines to try and help you maybe think outside the box a bit and maybe say what you want to say quicker and in a kind of sharper way. And create a poem that doesn't necessarily rely on it being like all linked together, because I don't think poems have to. Sometimes they can leap around and that's really exciting. And I think that sometimes using form in poems can be a bit scary because you're like, oh, what if I don't follow all the rules? There are loads of different aspects to a haiku and there's like literally centuries of history behind them, but in their bare forms they are 3-line poems with a certain amount of syllables, and you can use them to generate stuff for yourself. So that's kind of what I wanted to demonstrate there. In the last 15 minutes, I want us to look at another form, the sonnet, which I think when I first started writing poems, I found sonnets like quite intimidating. I think because they are old and highly revered. But I don't want to really introduce you to sonnets today in a kind of traditional sense. I could tell you a little bit about the sonnet. It's a 14-line long poem. Many sonnets were written and kind of generated and are known in Shakespearean times, for example. Shakespearean sonnets are written in what is called iambic pentameter, which basically means they have 10 syllables per line. Shakespearean sonnets are usually made up of 3 quatrains, which are like 4 lines, 4 lines, then 4 lines within that 14 lines, and then a little rhyming couplet at the end. So think of them as verses, like quatrain, 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 little couplet. They have a very strict rhyme scheme. I won't go into that. They are quite strict in the sense that they've got, as I said, a certain amount of syllables per line. There are different types of sonnets too. There's an Italian sonnet, which doesn't have the kind of quatrain, quatrain, quatrain. It has what is called an octave, which is 8 lines long, and then a sestet, which is 6 lines long. But we don't really need to know all of that. The rhyme scheme is different in an Italian sonnet as well. I'm telling you that as a bit of a background, but what I don't want it to be is like intimidating, because I think when I first thought, oh, I might try and write a sonnet, I was thinking about all that stuff. I was thinking about syllables in the line. I was thinking about rhyme schemes. I was thinking about counting my quatrain, quatrain, quatrain. I was thinking even about rhyming couplets. Modern poets are really making sonnets their own and taking them away from kind of traditional European forms. For example, a poet called Wanda Coleman, with her American Sonnets, which was a book published in 1994, she wanted these sonnets to be as open as possible, to not be as restrictive as the former European style of sonnet. She wanted to explode the form and just have fun within those 14 lines. She was writing a lot about the African American experience, breaking away from a kind of a form of the academy and of like the white man, I guess, and making it her own to represent her own experience. Terence Hayes, the American poet, wrote a book fairly recently called American Sonnets for My Past and Future Assassin, and dedicated it to Wanda Coleman's original book. And in Terence Hayes's sonnets, again, sometimes the only identifying feature of a sonnet is the fact that it's 14 lines, and it doesn't necessarily follow other conventions or traditional rules of the sonnets. Some modern poets do follow the rhyme scheme, but very loosely, so it almost just sounds like kind of an internal rhyme, you know. So I wanted to share with you one of Terence Hayes's sonnets. If I just share my screen again, bear with me. It's on the same PowerPoint. This sonnet is called 7 of the 10 Things I Love in the Face of James Baldwin. 7 of the 10 things I love in the face of James Baldwin concern the spiritual elasticity of his expressions. The sachet between left and right eyebrow, for example. The crease between his eyes, like a tuning fork or furrow, like a riverbed branching into tributaries, like lines of rapturous sentences searching for a period. The dimple in his chin narrows and expands like a pupil. Most of all, I love all of his eyes and those wrinkles, the feel and colour of wet driftwood in the mud around those eyes. Mud is made of simple rain and earth. The same baptismal spills and hills of dirt James Baldwin is made of. So this is a sonnet. It appears in a book of sonnets, but it doesn't really rely on the kind of formal conventions of a sonnet other than 14 lines long. And it's in dedication to somebody, which sonnets often are. So what I want us to do is I want us to do a quick free write where I'm going to talk you through some various prompts about a person that you know, whether that is somebody that you admire, like a person in the public eye. For example, this poem is about James Baldwin, who is an American writer. Or it could be someone that you know more intimately, a partner, a mum, a dad, a sister, a brother, a best friend, a cousin, I don't know, whoever. There's no wrong answer, just maybe whatever pops into your head first. We're going to do a free write on that person, and we're going to create our own dedicational? I don't know if that's a word, you know. We're going to create our own sonnet dedicated to them. So if you just get a blank page or a new page or a new Word document up on your computer, whatever you're working on is absolutely fine. And I'm going to talk you through a series of prompts. I want you to have that person in mind. Let me stop sharing because you don't need to see that right now. Have that person in mind. And here's where you're going to start your free write. You always, okay, so that person, what does that person always do? You always, I'll put it in the chat box too. Next one, you said. You said. The first one was you always. So you always play with my hair, or you always insist on the front seat in the car. You always. The second one was you said. You said I was the best at making chocolate chip cookies. You said you didn't like the winter. You smell of is the third one. You smell of. Next one, your, and then body part are or is. So your eyes are blah, 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 blah. Or your shoulders are da, la, la, or your hands are da, la, la. Next one, remember that time we. Remember that time we. The next one, I've forgotten. I've forgotten. Mr. Ginge has arrived. The next one is I wish, and this is your second to last one. And the last one is a question to the person. Are you what? Okay, because we are running out of time. Sorry, Mr. Ginge, I'm gonna have to put you down. Here is your task that you're going to have to do either after this webinar is finished or in your own time, whenever you want. Okay. I want you to use that free write that you just did about that person to create a sonnet. And the only rules that I want you to worry about, do not worry about rhyme scheme, how many syllables in per line, quatrains, anything like that. Just write a 14-line poem about this person using those free writes that you've just done. And the only other thing that I want you to do in your sonnet is to use one other traditional convention in sonnets, which is a turn. The turn happens on line 8 of the sonnet, and the turn is basically just a shift in tone. Perhaps it's something a bit less positive. If your whole poem has been positive up until that point, perhaps it's twisting or shifting into something different. Perhaps it's a question. Perhaps the turn comes in the form of a question, because then there's that sense of insecurity or instability in the poem all of a sudden. But something needs to happen on line 8 that makes us go a bit like, what? And that is one of the other really traditional conventions of a sonnet. It's a turn or a volta. I'll put it in the chat, VOLTA, as they call it. So that is your task. Because we've come to the end, you'll have to do it in your own time, but hopefully by the products, the outcomes of this workshop will be a little 6-stanza poem made entirely of haikus and a little sonnet. And I just wanted to kind of invite you to play with the sonnet form in a way that suits you. Like if you love rhyming and stuff like that, and if you love counting the syllables in a line, if you enjoyed that in the haiku portion of the workshop, perhaps you want to look up the traditional formal, tight, rigid sonnet and have a go at that. But I also want to invite you to feel like you can kind of make your own rules and use what serves you as a writer in the sonnet form. And sometimes it's useful just to have that 14-line restriction and nothing else. But I invite you to write that poem with the 14 lines. I invite you to try and have a little turn on the 8th line. And I'm just going to give you a bit of kind of info about what I've got coming up next before we end. Okay, so I'll be back next Wednesday with another webinar. I'm doing next Wednesday instead of in a fortnight, because in a fortnight I've got a gig, so I'm going to have to do my webinar next Wednesday. So please do come and sign up it's so fun. I love thinking up new exercises and hanging out with you on a Wednesday night. So please do come again. You can sign up by, well, I'll tweet it and everything. And you can also go on Spread the Word website. You can share your writing with us using the hashtag Write Through This on Twitter and tag STW events. Or if you're sharing your work on Instagram, you can hashtag Write Through This and tag Spread the Word Writers. But just make sure you're tagging Spread the Word, because then we can see your work. Or alternatively, you can email hello@spreadtheword.org.uk, and they will share your poems with me and post them online and stuff. So if you want to kind of celebrate your writing that's happened as part of this campaign, then you definitely can use that hashtag and stuff. So hopefully see you next week for another workshop. And then the week after that, I'll be dropping another little 10-minute writing video with some tips. Those are really useful if you haven't got much time and you just want to try a little 10-minute activity. They are also all on the Spread the Word website too, so you can check them out. But for now, all that remains for me to say is thank you so much, Michelle. And thank you all for showing up on a Wednesday night and giving me your energy and cheering me right up. And I hopefully see you for another webinar next week.